Massachusetts is proposing a government mandate that dictates when, how, and to whom landlords can sell their properties. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Massachusetts, right? And so obviously, Massachusetts falls into one of those states where they are extremely anti-landlord. They have a lot of far left progressives there, and you notice that, hey, they're always seem to be trying to strip landlords of their property rights. So the article is actually covering something that I've covered before, and it's called the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, okay? And they've actually proposed legislation up in the state of Massachusetts to try to get this thing passed. What it does is it gives tenants the first right of refusal whenever a landlord is trying to sell their property. And then that the tenants can pass those rights on to nonprofits or government agencies or someone else. Basically, what they're saying is a landlord cannot choose who they want to sell their property to, and that someone else has the first rights to their property, and they can kind of dictate the price and everything, the terms, and screw a landlord over when they're trying to sell their property. This is a pure violation of property rights. And I believe I read that it was Washington, D.C. already has a policy like this in place. And I can't remember in the article that I covered before what other municipality it was that was trying to pass this. But hey, it's a bad deal, okay? And I don't want to see this passed anywhere because, it completely takes away a property rights. You can't go and be a landlord and say, hey, I'm going to sell my property and I want to sell it to my son over here, right? And, my son, he'll then be able to start getting his new real estate investment business rolling, right? But no. The tenants, they're like, no, you can't sell it to your son. Instead, we want this nonprofit over here to sell it so that, they can buy it and then turn it into affordable housing and then keep our rents low forever. What? I mean, that's insane. Okay, my son, has, if I want specifically to sell to my son, then I should have the right to do that, and no nonprofit or government agency should be able to jump in there and take it from me, okay? And so, this goes back into that story I covered just a short while ago about how in California and Los Angeles, they were using eminent domain, the government was, so that they could take a landlord's property, a landlord who wasn't even selling it, and keep it as affordable housing and public housing forever. The government is overreaching. They are going too far with this stuff. And when they start passing laws like this, we have to challenge them. We have to take it to court. We have to just, not accept it. This stuff is not acceptable. Okay, we have rights and we don't deserve to be treated like, we are in some sort of communist country here. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know, have you heard of other municipalities that have this tenant opportunity to purchase like legislation in place, okay? And this will probably be East Coast or West Coast cities that have this sort of thing in place. Like I said, I had read that Washington, D.C. has this sort of policy, and it's disastrous for a lot of landlords. I've heard of just nightmare stories. If I can come across one, even an older one, maybe I'll do a video on it, okay? Because, you can't see the effects of this sort of thing looking at it from, right now. They never talk about the negative stuff. The negative stuff is stuff I have to dig for most of the time, okay? Anyway, this article is coming from bankerandtradesman.com, and it says, silent threat to property rights creeps forward on Beacon Hill. And this was written by a landlord or someone who's friendly to landlords. So it actually is a good opinion piece in my opinion. So let's get into it. Despite the end of another cold winter in Massachusetts, many small property owners still feel the chill of hostile housing proposals, which would violate their property rights, circulating on Beacon Hill. Among the proposals heard by the Massachusetts state legislature, there is one proposal in particular that remains more ominous due to its silent progression since last year without sufficient alarm raised by lawmakers and the public. In fact, A version of this silent killer actually passed the House and Senate in 2021 and would have become law had Governor Charlie Baker not vetoed it at the end of the legislative session, thereby averting an override of his veto. What the governor recognized, which evaded some other officials, was that the proposal would have imposed a government mandate dictating when, how, and to whom property owners could sell their buildings. Thank goodness that their governor vetoed this, but that is still, it's a bad sign because all they have to do is propose this same law again when there's a different governor in place, and guess what? It will probably pass, okay? There obviously is a lot of support for this sort of thing. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, we're talking about Massachusetts here. Come on. It's like one of the farthest left-leaning places in the entire country, okay? They are so anti-landlord there. And, you know, I was just covered an article recently about how the mayor of Boston is trying to push for rent control to get the state's ban on rent control overturned. So, I mean, this stuff isn't surprising, okay? Often called the tenant right of first refusal, or an alternative abbreviation, TOPA, this proposal amounts to the government preordaining a small set of buyers who extend beyond tenants themselves in some cases, while artificially blocking others from purchasing rental properties on the open market. As numbered currently, S890 and H 1426 would impose a tenant right of first refusal in the sale of rental properties throughout Massachusetts. H 4208, meanwhile, is a home rule petition that would apply the same restrictions in the city of Somerville exclusively. So yeah, they're trying to pass this tenant right of first refusal in the entire state of Massachusetts, but this city of Somerville is also trying to get it passed. And, like I said, it's a bad deal. The tenants, they can ordain someone else to be the buyer for the property, someone other than themselves. When they created this proposal originally, they were like, okay, well, the tenant should have the first right to buy the property before someone else, right? And you think about it and you're like, oh, well, this seems right, but hey, then you realize that the tenant doesn't have any actual rights to the property other than what is written out into the lease contract, okay? They don't own the property. They don't pay taxes on the property. They don't pay insurance for the property. They don't do the repairs to the property. They don't, they didn't have to buy the property. They didn't have to put any of the money down on the property. Yet now they can dictate who buys the property. What? It doesn't make any sense, okay? And slippery slope, okay? Whenever they start talking about property rights and they, taking property rights away from landlords, remember, this stuff can be extended onto just straight homeowners as well. That's why I am not for it, okay? And homeowners should be the ones backing up landlords because their rights are being limited to how they can use their properties as well. Okay, if you take these rights away from landlords, you might inadvertently be hurting yourself. Okay, but a lot of renters, they don't realize this sort of stuff. A lot of renters are very much clueless to, the discussion of property rights, etc. They think that, I can't live in the most trendy neighborhood in Boston, so, without paying an outrageous amount of money. So I deserve cheap rent and I deserve to live in the most popular neighborhood and I should never be forced to move and my rent should never raise. And, they should always come in and upgrade my unit. And no, that's not the way reality works, okay? If you want to live in a popular place, you got to pay the price. That's the way it works. Oh, man. If passed, these bills could prevent property owners from selling their properties at market value and make it much more difficult for buyers to purchase and invest in rental property. The law restricts the seller's ability to select the strongest offer and instead forces the seller to accept contingencies and abide by terms and conditions spelled out in legislation rather than the marketplace. Yeah, and this is something that, I don't know if I clarified very well in the last time that I made a video about this topic, okay? So the seller wouldn't be able to choose the best offer. That's just simply put. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is because a lot of the times when you're talking about the tenant opportunity to purchase, if the tenant wants to purchase the property, they're going to have to use special government financing and, special banks, and they're not going to have a strong down payment. They're probably not going to have any down payment. They might have to use a nonprofit in order to buy it. The nonprofit is going to have to borrow the money, and basically the whole process can get dragged out way longer than it should. It might have to go through more inspections, more everything in order to happen, and they might have to sell it for without the terms that they wanted to sell it by. So, like for example, if you own a property, let's say you own a 10-unit apartment complex here in Massachusetts, okay, and you're like, I just want to sell this property. It has a lot of deferred maintenance on it, etc. I want a quick closing and I want to sell it for cash, right? Well, you can't do that, okay? The Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, the tenants are like, nope, you cannot sell it. We are purchasing it, and you have to wait for 6 months while we get our financing and everything put together, and get a nonprofit in order to help us buy it, and all this, and your cash buyer over here who was going to buy it, he was going to cover all of the closing costs and everything else, and he was going to buy it as is. But for our lender, you have to fix everything first before we can buy it. And you're like, well, crap, now I can't even sell it now because it's going to take so long that it's going to ruin me financially trying to sell this dang place. So I can understand why there is such a push against this, and people don't understand that. And it says you have to follow rules that are written down in legislation and not based on the marketplace, right? And that is a huge problem, right? Just like rent control is a huge problem, right? When they say, oh, well, rents can only go up 3%, but the market is saying, hey, people can actually afford to pay 10% higher. Well, maybe we need to raise our rents 10%. Based on supply and demand, we need to raise our rents 10%. Based on inflation, we need to raise our rents 10%. But you're telling me that I can only raise my rents 3%. Well, that's going to lead to financial issues. And they don't see this stuff. They can't see it because they are blinded by their ideologies, okay?